There we go. Magnus Carlsen. Whoa! Whoa! Okay. Gonna take my espresso right now. Here we go. Magnus Carlsen, the world champion, has just registered for this title Tuesday. If I recall correctly, it's his second time ever joining this event. And he's a late entrant. I mean, he's still on time, but I was not expected. I can assure you. So we are in for a treat over here. Title Tuesday, May 2017. 10 rounds of Blitz. 3 minutes plus 2-second increment. They're playing for prizes, but I'll tell you, most grandmasters, most professional players, they play for the glory. Blitz is the most enjoyable format for a lot of professional players. The adrenaline, the variables, there's more risk. It's just what we live for. So that's going to be good. That is going to be good. Let me set up the screen here. But you guys tell me, who do you think is going to win? Naka or Carlsen? They're both maybe considered the two best Blitz players in the world by their peers. Number 1 and number 2. It depends on who you ask. Online is a little bit different, although Magnus did beat Hikaru last year in the Blitz battles. But yeah, we have Magnus Carlsen in the field today. And, well, I think we might have to follow him in the first round. So let me follow Magnus. Let me follow Hikaru. And we'll see a third one. Some other notable names. Sergei Grigorians, I believe he's playing Hikaru tomorrow. Benjamin Bach, member of the Dutch national team. Eduardo Torrezega, number 1 Venezuelan. Alan Pichot, Argentinian national team. But the games have started here. Title Tuesday, May 2017. And we have Magnus Carlsen playing board 1. Sometimes we see upsets on board 1. So I do hope some drama happens early on. Nakamura and Magnus have played each other many times, but this is a huge event. They're not going to play each other unless they win 4, 5, 6 games in a row. And even a couple of Title Tuesdays ago, Nakamura lost the very first round. So he's going to have to be a bit more stable than he sometimes is in order to get paired with Magnus. For those who don't know, Magnus was in California yesterday, I believe, for a summit, some sort of conference summit. Danny Wrench was also there. So I think Magnus is playing from the US. He's going for his London system. Easy to play, easy to get up on the clock, not a lot of risk, and he just knows it very well. So White's getting ready to trade off the dark squared bishops. He'd like to at some point achieve f3, kicking the knight out of the e4 square, and just claiming pleasant position due to this bishop on c8, which is locked in. So bishop h2, the knight might be going to f4 as well. If black doesn't want to trade off those bishops, Magnus is like, I'll just keep my bishop and I have a fantastic diagonal. So black decides to oppose it now. But these positions are slightly better for white and not a position you want to find yourself in against Magnus. He also plays the Stonewall himself. So he's very familiar with these structures from both sides. But I would say the Stonewall is an opening that requires a lot of care, and it's not recommended for most levels, playing with this bishop on c8. So black is delaying the knight to f6 move, which looks natural because he doesn't want white to play knight e5. White's preparing to play knight e5 as soon as that square becomes available. Queen a3 now looks nice. Yeah, and he does it. Magnus is up 45 seconds, and this is a really, really nice position. Just a pleasant edge. On board 2, we have Lawrence Trent with white against Hikaru Nakamura. So already, you know, a battle of well-known players. Lawrence is more of a commentator, but he's a very dangerous Blitz player in his own right. I've played him many times, and he scores a lot of upsets. Looks like it was an exchange Spanish or some sort of position. Black's got the 2 bishops. Looks very comfortable for Hikaru. But we're going to focus on one game at a time at first, unless something crazy happens. And here we have Magnus playing a queenless middle game with more space, with better pieces. knight e5, and White's getting ready to say, look, you're not developing your bishop. I'm going to open up the position. I have lead in development, and I think he might take on e4 here and play against this isolated pawn. This pawn is permanently bad. That means this bishop is bad. This is getting worse and worse. This is getting close to being just completely lost. Once White recoups this pawn, e4 is going to fall. And again, this bishop is not developing anytime soon. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a bunch of knight g3, knight takes c4. Everything is good here. Magnus is going to win this. Even if he was asleep, he would win this. You guys ever have chess streams? Yeah, knight c4, and black has a worse pawn structure, worse pieces, and a far worse position on the clock. Nothing changes. He's going to play knight c3, win this pawn. The bishop on c8 is still missing. Bishop on c8 is still missing. And you can't be playing down a piece against the world champion. You need everything active. So this is gonna go downhill pretty quickly. You really see the weakness of these pawns right now. They can't move. They're just available to be picked off. They don't contribute to black's position at all. And now he's threatening rook takes c6 if bishop takes c6 because the back rank is weak, which means black has to take back with the pawn, which only makes it worse. This is brutal. There's no other way to put this. The pawns. This is some of the worst pawns you'll ever see. Now White has the outside pass pawn. He's not picking this pawn off yet because he's got back rank threats. He's threatening rook takes d7 and rook b8 mate again. But look at the time, 22 seconds to 2:18. Brutal. And he's also threatening rook b7 and the bishop is pinned. Rook b7 is going to be on the board. Magnus Carlsen takes round 1 as soon as he defends this knight. Knight e2 or knight e4, anything, yeah. I expect a resignation in a couple of moves. Although if you're playing Magnus, you might not want to resign, just to say you lasted a bit longer. There's a check on b8, and that's a free bishop. Or that works as well. Magnus wins. Let's go to Lawrence Trent against Hikaru. And Hikaru is down a pawn. As I said, Nakamura has lost in round 1 before recently. He struggled to be consistent in Untitled Tuesdays, and he is down a pawn here. He's up 1 minute and 20 seconds, but there's increment. It's 3 minutes plus 2 second increment. And Lawrence Trent is a pretty dangerous bullet player as well. So even though he's low on time, he's very comfortable. This is a lost position for Hikaru Nakamura. I don't know how he's going to pull this out of the bag. Down a pawn, and without ways to mess up the position. There's only rooks. Rooks only move in one way. They're easy to anticipate, easy to calculate, and this should be a standard win for White. This extra pass pawn and his king supporting it. This is a lost position for Hikaru Nakamura. And if you guys are hoping for a Nakamura-Carlsen match this tournament, you're going to be cheering for Nakamura to pull something out here, which I don't know where and how he's going to do it. He does it against me all the time. I just don't know where it's coming from, though. You can play as fast as you want, but there's 2 second increment. And as you see, black is slowly getting pushed out. King, 2 rooks, and a pawn pushing 2 rooks back. I mean, that's a huge material deficit on the king side. Nakamura now is playing rook against queen, but unfortunately this is not a fortress for many different reasons. Too many pawns on the board. White's king is too active. And there's mate. Oh dear. Nakamura checkmated in round 1 by Lawrence Trent. As I said in the beginning, he's capable of scoring upsets, played against him many times, and he does it here. And there goes the dream of a Carlsen-Nakamura match, unless Carlsen starts dropping points. Big upset already. Wow. I mean, that was a clean win, too. That was, that wasn't a mouse slip or blunder. That was a clean win, it seems, from at least when we started following. All right, so as we recover from that result, other games going on. Who are we going to follow? We're going to follow my friend, Benjamin Bok from the Netherlands. He's playing... where are the player names? 1 second. He's playing black here. And he's got a bishop against knight with rooks on the board in an open position. You got to favor the bishop because it is open. It is an endgame, and bishops are generally stronger. But the other problem, the swaying factor here is the outside pass pawn. Outside pass pawn for white is actually very, very fast, and he's going to just slowly kick away this bishop. So that changes things. That changes things a lot. This is not looking good for black. But one thing he might try is sacrificing that bishop for the pawn, and trying to play on the king's side, down a piece, but with drawing possibilities. Because rook and knight against rook is a draw. So still some opportunity here to hold it. He wants to get the pawns off the board. You can take this. You can take this pawn. Yes, you can. And now, I've lost this position before because knights are extremely tricky in Blitz. But objectively speaking, it's one of the easier endgames to hold. A rook and knight against rook. It's much easier to hold than rook and bishop against rook. So we're in the middle of round 1 of Title Tuesday, May 2017 edition, and Magnus Carlsen is playing. That's all you got to know. He's got a busy schedule and a surprise appearance. And it's already paying off because number 2 seed in the tournament, Hikaru Nakamura, lost round 1, which puts him as a huge betting favorite. And they repeated here, which, I mean, it's a fair result, but I think you might as well play on as white. Knights are very tricky in time scrambles, but okay, low-rated player, plays it safe. A good result nonetheless. What else is going on this round? So let's exit that. Here we go. This is a game. Akobian playing black. He's just 1 on time against the Dutch IM. So that game is over. The games are just winding down now. Some other notable participants of the tournament. Let's see. So Akobian is there. Quite a few French grandmasters as normal. I see Nuki, a fan favorite on the website. He won his game. I see GM Joey, another fan favorite from the Philippines, Rogelio Antonio, playing. And he rarely plays in these. So Philippines represent over there. Who else? Yeah, we're just waiting for the last couple of games to finish. Let me put one up. Here's another website favorite, Yakov Norowitz here, playing white, I believe. And this might be headed for a draw. Oh, what was that? What was that? I moved. So both sides are going to queen, and white will have a pawn for the bishop. Oh, what? Bishop e8. Well, now this is just a draw. I'm not sure why he gave up his bishop for that. Bishop e8 is a strange move. There's no other way to put it. Bishop e8, your bishop is worth more than a pawn. No, that's a strange move. But at least it ensures the draw, just that black was better. Queen and bishop against queen and pawn. If one side's going to win, it's going to be the queen and bishop. They go to kings. And all the games are done. Round 2 has started immediately, and we have Iceland against Norway on board 1. I think this is Helgi Olafsson. It is Helgi Olafsson, a longtime member of the Icelandic national team. I think he's busy as a coach these days. He still plays sometimes, but he's been a grandmaster for decades. I've played him multiple times. Still quite sharp, plays a lot of blitz, and he's playing white against Magnus. So we have a Scandinavian battle in round 2 over here. I imagine the players have probably played each other over the board at some point. And Magnus goes for a6. This is a recent trend. It's not caught on for the most part, but some strong players have been playing it. It's not the prettiest move, let's put it that way. You often end up weakening your squares considerably when you play c6, but it's been scoring okay. So this round we definitely won't be following Hikaru, most likely because he's no longer on board 2. And we'll have to wait for him to catch up. He's got a hill to climb, but if there's somebody who can do it, it's him. It's 10 rounds. And the winning score is usually 9 points or less. So the margin of error, he's still within the margin of error. That loss has not knocked him out of any sort of spot yet, but 2 losses and you're struggling. So white is going for just the classic, I mean this is like a Carlsbad structure, just the classic minority attack over here. And we'll see how Magnus plays this as black. This is a very, very classical position. Oh, a3. And it's not very risky for white at all. So we'll see how Magnus mixes it up. That's why he's spending a lot more time than his first round. And he plays b5. Okay. So he's ready to lock everything down. He wants to play a5 next move. He wants to gang up on this b4 pawn. And he also might have ideas at some point of sticking a knight on c4, just at some point. But I think a5 is his immediate idea. And he's done it. He's done it. And I wouldn't be surprised to see knight b6, knight c4 follow up. It's looking good for black. This pawn on c6 could be weak, but we have to assess it in the current moment, and I don't see how white actually attacks it. If white doesn't attack it, he's allowed to play that move. Because if black gets this knight to c4, then the c6 pawn is not accessible to white, and then it's all fine. So g4, and he wants to play g5 and question this knight on f6. Magnus takes on b4 first. It also has a threat, and now he's going to decide. You can play bishop e6, bishop g6. That's about it. Only 2 moves. g5, maybe? What's wrong with g5? This knight has to go to e4, which is not what I want to do as black. Helgi Olafsson playing very well so far. c6 is now going to fall. c6 is hanging. This should be, well, this is double-edged, but at first glance it looks okay for black. You win the c6 pawn, you lose the g5 pawn. Is that on the board? Oh no, that was my guess. Remember, if you guys follow the games on the live interface, you can make moves before they do it, and if you get it right, there's a little game, and like guess the move, and it tells you at the end of the game which player anticipated the most moves, predicted the most correct moves. So is this on the board? It is on the board. So it's double-edged now. So without the h pawn, black might have ideas of playing knight f6, maybe h5, h4. Get some play against white's king side. Now bishop h3 is the threat. Interesting. Is bishop d5? No, sorry, bishop e6. Not probably playable, or it's not desired. I mean, white's putting up some stubborn resistance. Now, what happens after bishop h3? He's done bishop h3? He has. That's what I thought was a threat. But I think what white maybe thought was after g3, you can take on f1. And then white can take on d7, threatening queen takes f7. But queen takes f7 isn't checkmate. So things are heating up here. We'll see what the players do. Magnus is going for checkmate. White is going for pawn structure. Pawn structure being favorable in endgames because white's pawns are on the dark squares. Black has a very weak b5 pawn. e4 is sort of loose, especially in endgame. So in an endgame, this will be good for white. But Magnus has recognized that, and he's going for it. He's attacking right now. And I have to say, I completely agree with his train of thought. That's easy to say when following Magnus. He just does the right things. But yeah, Magnus does not want this to go into an endgame. He wants to finish his older opponent in the middle game over here. He's up 30 seconds on time. He's got tactical shots in the position, and he's definitely banking on that. But he hasn't sacrificed anything, so I definitely really do favor Black's initiative. Initiative is worth quite a bit in Blitz. I mean, you have 30 seconds, and there's too many pieces on the board. If you're playing white here, you gotta somehow get trades going. Now you can take on G3, and E3 is hanging. No, Olafsson playing white, he's got to get heavy pieces off the board. With so many pieces on the board, with no time, that is a recipe for disaster. You're going to blunder at some point. There's too much to calculate. You simply can't calculate it all, and something's got to give. So Magnus now, if knight takes e4, he's got queen h6 check. Okay, he's got tactics everywhere. Rook a2 might be close to winning, and now knight g4 check. The bishop is pinned. That looks winning. Knight g4 check, and knight takes e3. Oh, even nicer, queen h5. Game over. I expect a resignation. Wow. A very, very nice win by the world champion. Slow pressure without a lot of risk, and just outplayed his opponent very comfortably in the middle game there. So Carlsen moves to 2 out of 2. Long way to go, but he's doing what he's supposed to do. And we're going to move on to another board here. Akshat Chandra wins on one of the top boards as well. He's high rated, 2755 Blitz. He moves to 2 out of 2. Let's check some other games. Here we have Dutch champion Jordan van Foreest playing a Hungarian grandmaster. Both pretty evenly rated. I'm guessing this is... Actually, I can't guess. There's a lot of Hungarian grandmasters. Hungary is one of the strongest chess countries in the world. Some people don't know that. I mean, they know the Polgar sisters, but it's just... even besides the Polgar sisters, they're one of the top 5 countries, I would say, in the world in terms of strength of their top 10 players. So this could be anyone. But Black, how do you evaluate queen endgames? The passed pawns. Both sides have passed pawns here, so very advanced passed pawns. So once you go past that, who has more material? And white has more material. So this definitely looks good for white. I think both sides are going to queen, and white's going to be up material. So black's trying to avoid that, which is correct. But I mean, first you can take this pawn. You have at least a draw. There's no shelter for black's king, so you can at least take d5 and then decide. But if you want to play for more. But the reason black didn't go into, didn't push his pawn and try to block white's pawn is, because both sides queen, you both lose the queen, and then white would just be up 2 pawns in the resulting endgame. So what black did was the only try. I don't see a way to stop black from queening, which means this is headed to a draw. White's been spending time, he's down to 10 seconds, he's trying to find a way. Okay, queen h5 check, king here. Queen. This is going to be a 2-queen position, but I'm going to be queening with check. I don't understand this decision by Van Foreest. Queen a1, then queen e8, then king c2 check. Oh, king f2, there's no checks. That's an amazing combat. That's very nice. So queen a1, queen e8, if king c2 or anywhere, my king on f2 actually cannot be checked. My pawn on e3 does a great job of sheltering from a7. So Van Foreest is going to queen here, and he's going to be up 3 pawns, and he's calculated that his king is actually safe. Wait, what? Am I missing something? I think I'm missing something. Queen here? What? He's just blundered or something. Queen, what the heck is this? I just lost my earbuds. I don't understand what just happened. Oh, king a2. You guys are right. Yeah, I knew I missed something. It's a time scramble. I knew I missed something because Jordan is strong enough that he's going to find it. So I was wrong about that. I was trying to figure out why he played for a win, so I assumed he had seen it. But after Queen F2, um, sorry, after Queen here, there's just simply King A2. I was looking at these two moves. This wins. Check. Oh. Does it win? Yeah. Okay, I'm not sure about that. There's a lot to calculate there. Not entirely sure if this is winning for, because I can always block with Queen F1. I don't know. I don't know. Why didn't he do it? But anyhow, they had no time, so it's very easy to sit in the chair. Yeah, sorry. I guess somebody's doing construction. That doesn't happen too much at 4:30 p.m. If it continues, I might have to complain. The problem is I can't really complain easily. Okay, this game is finishing. Problem is I can't really complain easily because I'm a pretty loud person, especially when I lose blitz games. I sometimes throw things. So if I complain about noise, people might complain about me because sometimes I'm putting on techno or throwing things. So that's the problem. That's the problem. Too many rage quits that I've done. All right, the current standings. I'm going to bring them up after 2 rounds. I'm going to bring up the standings right now. A huge group with 2 out of 2. As you can see, world champion Magnus Carlsen. I mean, he's a 200-point rating favorite. But if I recall, the last time he played one of these Blitz events, he did lose a game to the field. So it's definitely possible. It's Blitz after all. But yeah, many players on 2 out of 2. Some well-known names there, such as Iturazaga. But for the most part, we're going to see Carlsen play players he's never really played before, which should be exciting. All right, so round 3 is about to begin. We have Carlsen playing white here against Leonardo Tristan from Cordoba, Argentina. No, that's not me. You guys are pretty funny. That is not me making noises. But if it continues, I'll have to switch to a headset. No, I turned my microphone down a little bit during the construction. So Carlsen goes for e4 this game. He's going for an open position. So a little bit of a different strategy compared to round 1. He's not going for his line. He's going for an open position, although it already looks good for white. It is yeah. Somebody's using a drill. So what I expect here at some point is probably f3, queen d2, and queenside castle. Opposite side castling should give us a pretty exciting game. White has more space. White has a nice little bind restricting black's center here. You can't really play d5 easily and gain fight back. So I mean, it's definitely preferable for white. We'll see what black does here. It kind of has a Philidor pawn structure. c7 and d6. So bishop e2 or bishop b3. Oh, I didn't mean to guess that. This is the current position. Knight e5. Probably bishop e2 is safer. He's done it because c5, c4 would have been annoying. Oh, it says I'm correct. Yeah, you guys can do guess the move. It's very fun. By the way, Nakamura did win round 2, so he's back to 50%. I shouldn't say back to, the tournament just started, but it's better than 0. And he goes for the kingside castle. It's a safer choice after a6 because, you know, black was getting ready to counterattack. The benefit of this is Magnus definitely favors his chances in a slow positional game. So I'm expecting moves like rook a1, maybe h3 at some point in order to play f4. And now d6 is very weak. You don't give no. This is you can't do this. Now rook d1. Now d6 is critically weak. What's going on here? This is looking good for white because black just created a bunch of weaknesses. You can take and play knight c1. Oh no, d6 is a problem. There's also bishop takes c5 of knight e8. This is a problem already. This is already looking very pleasant for white. Just too many pawn weaknesses. You can't give the world champion easy positional targets like that. So I definitely like this for white. I don't know how you defend d6. You're not probably going to defend d6. You're going to try to play around it, but you're stuck with it either way. A long think by black here, but the position just looks bad. I mean, I can always play b3. He goes for queen b6. You can take here. You can also just play b3. d6 is a long-term problem. So no rush in picking it up, but this is a big edge for Magnus. He can also consider knight e2 even. I'm not sure the queen wants to go sailing far away. And he's gone knight e2 with the idea that after queen takes b2, I'll probably play rook b1, queen a3, and queen takes d6, and the queen is simply offside. It's just offside. It's just misplaced. This is getting worse and worse for black because he's still taking time. He needs to recognize his position is bad. He needs to play a bit quicker. He needs to try to use those bishops to create dynamic counterplay because the momentum of the game is not in his favor. Bishop e6. I like this move. Black is preparing to play rook d8, defending the pawn, and then playing d5 and opening up the position for the bishop. So Magnus does have something to chew on right now. What do you do about that? So b3, I expect a capture here, and then rook d8. Okay, rook d8 first. That also makes sense. Knight f4, stopping d5. That's critical. Cannot allow black to open up the position. Again though, d6 is going to be long term. So in the meantime, I think if you're playing white, yeah, you just try to keep control, force your opponent to play defensive, and leverage that into a sort of a time advantage. I think that's what he's pretty much doing. Because I don't think there's a way to win d6 anymore. But there's a way to keep it, keep it there, keep it weak. And now what white wants to do, he needs to get this rook into the game. Somehow build some more pressure. His knights are good. His rook on d1 is good. Rook on f1 could be improved, for sure. What's up, brother Josh? Guys, I'm following Title Tuesday. I'm only following Magnus right now. If you guys want to follow other games, you can log into the live interface and pick any game you want. There are a lot of good players playing at the exact same time right now. So feel free to try that. Nakamura is somewhere in the pack, in the chasing pack, and I'm sure he has some exciting games. But here we're watching Magnus grind this position out. He's playing against the two bishops. Two bishops are effective in really open positions. This is not really open yet. This pawn is still stuck. There aren't a lot of open files for the rooks. And rook d1 is going to happen next, I guess. But black hasn't been able to break free of this bind yet. So the bishops aren't as effective as they normally would be. Big advantage for Magnus. So I think he can just take on... He's going to win this pawn. Yeah. And I think he's just going to take this pawn. Otherwise, he has knight b6. That's even cleaner. So I was thinking c3, rook d3, rook back, and now knight a4. And you collect the pawn. If d5, rook fd1, I'm guessing. Maybe not. Oh, he's done. I'm guessing all the moves. Maybe I'll guess the move. Black's in trouble here. Rook takes or h3. h3 is stopping the idea of take, knight g4, check, which I'm not sure is bothersome. Black's down to 6 seconds. Black is down to 6 seconds. You can't give 40 seconds. I mean, just, it's too much. It's a 10-round tournament. 10-round tournament. Rook takes c3. What's wrong with that? Looks like a healthy pawn to me. And now it's just about converting. Maybe move the king out of the way. In fact, black's not threatening anything. The pawn is pinned. There's always rook takes d8 check. Even if d4, I can just move my king out of the way. You're not actually threatening my rook. Knight c5. Very nice. Black is dead lost here. He's going to pick up a second pawn. He has his choice. And Carlsen's going to move to 3 out of 3. And no bad positions yet. We haven't seen any comebacks, any points of difficulty for the world champion. I think he's in California. I think he's playing some pretty comfortable chess. Now that's a third pawn. It's raining pawns. Black living off increment, but his position is deteriorating every single move. Now c4 or king d3. Okay, anything. Oh, knight f4 checks the threat. Rook takes e6 and knight f4. But Magnus played e5 covering it, and he doesn't fall for it. He's just going to bring his king or something. He's done it. One last trick there. Let's check that one more time. Knight h5 with the idea of rook takes e6, knight f4 check. Magnus saw that coming a mile away, and he's defended it. Black resigns. Carlsen moves to 3 out of 3. Check on the remaining games. What do we have here? I think this is Penguin GM1 playing white against Indian Lad. I think that's the game. White's up 2 pawns, so it should be winning. You can't play h4 because of queen e1. Yeah, he moves his queen check, maybe. That's a winning pawn endgame. Two pawns is too much. No, this is over. So we might see Penguin GM1. I am Andrew Tang from Minnesota. He might be playing Magnus next round if he continues. This is a bit of an upset based on the ratings, but the point is, it's a Swiss tournament, so Magnus is going to continue playing players, quite a bit lower rated than him until the field really thins out. But unless white falls for perpetual, this is a pretty straightforward conversion. You just need, getting the queens off the board is the hard part. If you can't get the queens off the board, you slowly push your pawns. I should say it's a bit harder than first glance, because if you can't trade the queens, I'm always threatening queen g3 when your queen vacates, and you can't push these pawns too easily. So I would take now and play king e6. King e6. Putting up a lot of resistance here. King e6, what's going on? Check, king here. Check, and you cover the check. So queen d6 and e6 should win the game. Whoa. That works as well. But queen d6 would cover the diagonal, and then you could just push the pawn, as far as I can tell. This also works. There's a check here. Check. Check. Let's see. Just a matter of time, though. Blitz with increment is so much different than blitz without increment. Technique is a big factor in blitz with increment. You get a good position, you have 2 seconds on the clock. Well, you're supposed to do well in that. You're not supposed to, you're not supposed to flag, you're supposed to win those positions. Slowly but surely. White's still figuring out the winning sequence. Black's done a good job of harassing. I've been ignoring the people on Twitch. I will go check on them now. I like to neglect those people. What's up, guys? Nice to see some good numbers for Title Tuesday. I mean, you can't really miss it. When Magnus is playing, it's definitely a treat. I think it's really good for chess that the top player in the world is a very active player and plays all the time in the spotlight. That's good for the popularity of the game and the just everything. Rivalries, entertainment. So white is now getting close to checkmating block, getting that king up in there. But now he's won the second pawn, and this is a very smooth conversion. Oops. Wait, he just blundered. No. I can just keep checking. I've checked on e7, on e1. Never mind. That was nice. You have this geometry here. The king cannot cannot get anywhere. King g3, queen e1. Ah, that's a draw. Nicely played. Nicely played. Checking the queen on the diagonals. And this is going to be a draw. So, that means white maybe should have considered obviously not taking the pawn. Not quite yet, but anyways, an instructive way to draw by Indian Lad. That was a very long game. A few points missed by white there, but okay. I mean, he was playing on increment. So those players moved to 2.5. We won't see them playing Magnus. Not quite yet. Why? All the games are done. The current standings, there's still dozens of players, at least a dozen players with 3 out of 3. Carlsen is the leader there, but just to quickly bring up the standings for you guys. You see Magnus, okay, they're all tied. In fact, he's not even on the list that you guys are seeing. There are 10 players here. 10 players with 3 out of 3. Carlsen is now playing against, who's Spartacus? 1975. Oh, thank you. Like I can't read Cyrillic. Google's gonna be my friend right now. So he's playing a Ukrainian grandmaster. Actually, I do know a little bit of Cyrillic, but I forgot all of it. Spartak. Oh, I can't. That's a hard name. Spartak is his actual name, so that's pretty cool. Spartacus. Vysokin. Spartak Vysokin from Ukraine. He's rated 25-31, and he's 42 years old. That's what my quick Google search tells me. And Magnus is playing the Berlin against him, which is a funny choice. But he's just planning to outplay his opponent in a symmetrical endgame, in a drawish endgame. He's just very confident no matter the position. But it's not the normal choice you play in Blitz. It's not a common Blitz opening, especially when you're trying to play for a win. But we're talking about Magnus here. He plays virtually every single opening. He doesn't get bothered by the reputation. He plays lines that aren't considered excellent or top-notch. He's just confident in his middle games. That's his bread and butter. But it's going to be instructive to see how Black tries to be dynamic in this position. He's got a little bit less space. Everything else is identical. I prefer white. I play this variation as white myself. So white's slightly preferable in these positions. And it's considered like no risk. No weak pawns, no misplaced pieces. It's very, 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 very equal. But we know something's got to give. So let's wait and see and figure out what Magnus does to try to push this position. Some other players on 3-3. David Klein, Grandmaster from the Netherlands. Akobian. Aturizaga. Who's Dr. Vitamin? Oop. Another. Everyone's name is in Cyrillic. I learned a bit of Russian when I used to go to Russia for chess tournaments. And I wanted to date Russian girls. I forgot all of it. Those were my teenage years, so I won't be able to translate some of the usernames here. Um, normally, this would, if you saw this position and it was two top 10 players, let's say, you'd expect a draw agreement pretty soon. But we know Magnus was playing, so we know he's going to play this on, and he's going to try to create some weaknesses. But it's funny, not many players in the world would be confident trading off all the pieces, putting their pawns on the light squares. But what he wants to do is he wants to play b5 and knight c4, and he wants to use the b file. I'm still not convinced it's enough, but it's pressure, and pressure built up. Pressure builds up. It's pretty funny though to play the Berlin, trade off the pieces, and punish your opponent. And that's what he's gonna do. He's gonna get knight c4. He's gonna take back like this, and he's gonna use the b file. Maybe rook e2 here. Rook e2, bishop d3. Rook e3. I'm not sure. But yeah, he's going to make b2 his target. That's all he's playing for. Now, one good thing is these pawns might be targets too. He might play maybe not f6 yet because of rook e6, but he might try to play h5 or g6 at some point. At some point. But yeah, Magnus is trying to get knight c4 to work. Hikaru is on 2 out of 3. He's making his comeback. Nakamura is storming back, guys. Watch out for him. He wants a piece of Carlsen, I bet. That's what we want to see as well. Is Magnus going to play knight c4? It's a nice moment to do it right now. Take back with a b pawn, rook e2, and then bishop d3. Dude, Magnus is so good. He's going to win this technically. This is going to be... I'm not going to commentate on some of these moves. I don't know what he's planning. He's evaluating different endgames, I'm sure of it. I'm sure he's evaluating some of these endgames, these bishop and rook endgames. But what he's especially evaluating is the rook endgame. Is the rook endgame winning after bc4 with the bishops off? I mean, it doesn't look winning, but he's looking for positions where he can push there. He's definitely going very deep right now in terms of evaluating. I don't know what he's thinking. It sounds like I'm complimenting him a lot, but I am actually. I'm trying to guess the move. No, if he played h6, that means I don't think he sees like something really promising. He's waiting. So g6. Okay, bishop takes. Bishop takes g6. Oh, he takes with the pawn. So after rook e6, he's going to play rook d8 and just kick the rook out. So what happens after knight c4? Rook e6 again. But now that's double-edged. Now that's double-edged. Also, I can play bishop e4. Okay, not quite yet. Bishop here. If rook here, rook e1, e8 check. Rook e8 check. And if you play knight e5, I just move my king over and the knight's pinned. But white is playing good. White is holding on so far. This might be the first crack in his boat. That black has now won the e-file. His knight's ideally placed. He has, actually, yeah, black's taken over. In a matter of a couple moves, black has an e-file. His bishop's on d3. His knight's ideally placed on c4. He's got everything going for him. And white is almost in zugzwang. So you see what happened? I don't know what just happened, but all of a sudden black's like winning. Almost. So something just happened. That was ridiculous. Take and rook e2. I mean, game is now lost. Now this is just a lost, it should be a lost position. So rook e1, I can take on b2, I can play rook f2, but I mean, you know, nothing happens, all of a sudden you're lost. That's the technical chess. That's pretty disturbing. And now he's preparing to play rook b3, and he's winning this pawn, he's winning this pawn. His knight on c4 is just a monster. This is game over. Carlsen wins the Berlin endgame comfortably. There's no perpetual, even with his king on f8. He's going to push this pawn. And he's going to set up a nasty checkmate over here. Rook check, b3, and rook a2 is mate. This game is all but over. And that's a game worth studying or something. It's a game worth studying. The world champion showing why he's considered the best technician in the world. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. He moves to 4 out of 4. You see, he put all his pawns on the wrong color, and it paid off. Let's check another game. Who else shall we follow? Let's follow Lawrence. Lawrence beat Naka. Lawrence Trent from England. He knocked out Hikaru in the first round, slowed him. And he's at 2.5 out of 3. He's playing down, which means he must be playing somebody overperforming as well. And he's trying to grind out this endgame. He's got a knight against bishop, but he's got a better pawn structure. Black has double pawns on the f-file. But an active king here. And white's pawns on the king's side are all on dark squares. So what happens if I poke you with bishop c3? You play a3, then I poke you again with bishop b2. I mean, somebody's got to stop Magnus because he's winning these games effortlessly. I mean, people are putting up resistance, but he hasn't been in a single difficult position. He hasn't broken a sweat, most likely. Where's this knight going? Check. Okay. Is Lawrence messed up? As Lawrence would say, he might have fudged it up a bit. He fudged it. I don't think... So what happens here? So if you take here, I play king d5. That's what he's afraid of. But now I have knight takes f6, and you can't take b4 because of knight d5 check. He's going for the h-pawn. He's going for the h-pawn. So black's going to have 2 pawns on the queen side, and white's going to have an outside this h-pawn running down the board. Bishop should beat knight, and after h4, there's bishop e7. This is lost. It looks like Trent has butchered his position here. b4, b3, a3, a2. The pawns push themselves so nicely here with that bishop on f6. And Vrolik from the Netherlands will move to 3.5 out of 4. A FIDE master. Doing very well. Reversing that position. Easy to overpress. Easy to overpress in Blitz. Got a game going on here. White trying to hold this position, but that extra pawn on a3 keeps this rook passive. He's going to check on a4. He's going to bring his rook, his king to g5, king e5 even. Or he can just king walk. This is lost. Outside pass pawn should win. You just queen. That's all. Nothing else. That's actually all you do. You don't need to memorize that endgame. You just need to queen your pawn. One of the objectives in chess. So the winner of this, I think, might move to 4 to 4. How many players are on 4 to 4? Yeah, the winner was Sergei Nefedov, who is an FM from Russia with 4 to 4. Do not know who he is. Let's take a quick look at the leaderboard right now. 4 players with a perfect score. Who's this? Tamash? It is Tamash. Okay. That was a good guess by me. He's a 2600 Grandmaster from Hungary. I don't know who Sergei Nefedov is though. But clearly very dangerous. It probably means he's beaten 4 high rated opponents. At least 3, but probably 4 GMs. He's got 4 GM kills on his sword, so to speak. But Carlsen and Eduardo Trezeguet. So we know these guys are going to play each other because it's an even number. Still a couple games going. But the way Magnus is playing, who's going to stop him? Who is going to stop him? A lot of Dutch guys in this event. They all coordinated today or something. I need to get Robin to play in these. Everyone else is playing. Jordan, Bock, Klein. Got all the Dutch names. Vrolik. Bjertsen. There's a bit of a Dutch invasion on the tournament. This is objectively a draw. Even material, all on the same side of the board. Black is a bit of a better pawn structure, but the rook endgames are drawn, the bishop endgames are drawn. Some of you would have to plunder. I'm not sure about putting your pawn on h4. Seems unnecessary, putting it on a dark square. h4 is... There's no benefit to h4. You're not playing bishop g5. No, h4 is a bad move. White should try to force a drive, but h4 just means you're tied down to a pawn, which you didn't need to do at all. Putting on the wrong color. I would consider trading rooks. They're just repeating. Black might as well trade rooks and play rook e5 or something. Let me check on the neglected Twitch people. Yep, so the world champion's on 4-4 right now. I don't have a bell. No, I do not have a bell. Danny's got a bell for checkmate. Why am I not playing? Well, I'm commentating, but I'm probably not playing as well because once I see Magnus in the field, I'm going to run away. Now, it'd be pretty cool to play Magnus, I have to say. So, round 5 starting here. We have 4 players on a perfect 4-4, and the world champion has blown through the field. He is playing another strong grandmaster here, Tamás Banush from Hungary. And he's going for e4. He's going for a slow game though, Jojoko piano. Slow, steady, and effective for him. No reason for Magnus to take risks here unless he chooses to himself. He's been doing well in these middle games. He's been playing quick. Been finding small points of pressure, and his opponents have been succumbing at some point. But here, there's nothing special yet. This is played a lot these days. The World Championship featured this opening, the recent World Championship between Carlsen and Karyak, and a lot of the top players are playing this. Even Vladimir Kramnik, who was a d4 player for quite a long time, he's recently switched to e4 and he's been playing these positions. I don't know why. These positions are very symmetrical and they're very deep. They look the same, but there's subtleties all around. I could spend a year studying these positions and probably not fully understand why certain positions are better than others. White has a bit of a space advantage with the pawns on e4 and d4. Black, for his part, he's got a5 and e5 in. He's contesting the center. He's traded off a pair of pieces. He's got decent knights. I mean, it seems okay for black to me so far, and he's playing quick enough. The prizes, that is a great question by Shash is okay. So the prizes are 500 for first, 400 for second, 250 for third, 150 for fourth, 100 for fifth, and that is in US dollars, not Canadian dollars. The Canadian dollar is really low these days. I definitely recommend Americans to visit Canada right now because the Canadian dollar is weak. But yeah, $1,500 prize pool is at stake. But as I said in the very beginning, I don't think Magnus or Naka are playing for the prizes. I mean, that's a good benefit. The prizes are very good. But I think Blitz and beating rivals, the glory that's available is worth more. At least when I play, it's usually just because I love Blitz. We'll see though. Maybe they just like taking the cookie jar. Maybe they just like taking our cookies and winning all the tournaments. That wouldn't surprise me as well. They're just here to beat on us working grandmasters. The working class grandmaster is being punished by Magnus here. As you can see, double isolated pawns, that is enough to play for. All of a sudden, black finds himself in a lost position. Guys, the position is lost now, most likely. Knight f7, I trade rooks, I put a knight on c4, I fork e5 and a5. This pawn structure is already awful. Magnus has once again gone into just a much better endgame. Double isolated pawns, the worst sort of double pawns possible. And there you have it. This pawn falls or this pawn falls. So now Magnus is going to be playing an endgame up a pawn, up 50 seconds. And of course, he takes the outside pawn because this is a weakness anyways. If you have two pawns that you can capture, take the one that is stronger. You can pick up the weaker one later. It's going to be weak later on, but pick up the one that you might not be able to get in the future. The one that's time sensitive. So, well, this is brutal. White's up a pawn, white's up on time, and e5 is going to fall at some point. Carlsen doing something he does very well, waiting for mistakes from his opponents. He not only beats us like that, he beats top players in the world just waiting for mistakes. He can wait 100 moves, he can wait 200 moves, but he plays really well in that phase of the game. I remember reading an interview from four-time Soviet champion Alexander Belyavsky, and he said, I only know two players in my career who play better in the 6th hour of play than in the 1st hour of play, and those players are Carlsen and Karpov. Coming from a 4-time Soviet champion. But that makes a lot of sense, and it's definitely a very rare attribute. He can just prolong the game and wait for mistakes. So, in the context of a blitz game, Carlsen is the sort of player who can play better in the 80th move than in the middle game when he's fresh. He just gets stronger as the game goes on. We're following the board 2 between two players on 4-4. Right now, Magnus Carlsen is in a clear lead pending this result. He's at 5 out of 5, and only these two players can maintain the pace. I noticed somebody in the audience mentioned that I have better hair than Magnus this week. For those who don't know, Magnus has been debuting a new hairstyle and new glasses. He hasn't worn glasses before, as far as I know, but he's also got a new hairstyle, sort of different ways to describe it. I'm not sure if it's intentional, but it was the subject of a lot of social media posts. Black here has a big space advantage and a huge time advantage. I mean, g5, f4 looks crushing. This knight on d3 controls everything, so this looks extremely bad for white. g5, f4 looks like a fantastic... I mean, this knight on d3, just too much to deal with here. Queen takes d3, black's up a pawn, the knight's hanging. But I'm not even sure I would have traded queens in that position. Knight b2, forking the rooks. Oh, bishop here. And rook takes a7. What a tactic. What a tactic by Sergei Nefedov. He has rook g7 with a windmill tactic. So the rooks aren't, and he's recovered the pawn, and he's completely fine now. He's not down material. He's traded off a lot of the dangerous pieces, and in fact, it might even be black's king that is a little bit soft and tender along these dark squares. Bishop e5 was a nice touch. And Turzega is rattled. He's spending his time. He's just butchered his position. And now he's facing a very unpleasant task. 2 bishops for white. He's going to get the 7th rank. This is looking really good for Sergei Nefedov, who is a surprise story. A surprise story right now. I mean, g4, king g2, open up the position. Look at this bishop over here. It's gorgeous. Oh, knight f4 using tactics. He wants to play knight e6. He's attacking the bishop and he's threatening knight e6, forking the bishop and the rook. Turzega coming through. Because you can't just let this bishop stay on d4. It dictates the whole position. I played Magnus this year for the first time in my life in the Pro Chess League. In the match between the Chess Bros against Norway. I lost to Magnus, but we won the match. So, good and bad, but it was a lot of fun. So now we're headed into a bishop endgame. However, this is a well, e3 is double-edged. He's saying that you can never capture the pawn because I control all the squares around it. Because otherwise, if this pawn falls, then all of a sudden white's doing well. But if it doesn't fall, yeah. So it was an attempt to play. Black's attempting to play. He's hoping for a move like king g2, where you can play bishop d5 check and win the resulting king and pawn endgame. So white has to watch out for that. The king can't go to f1, and it doesn't want to go to g2. Oh, bishop here, and maybe bishop f3. Okay, he wants to play king d5. He wants to play king d5, king d4. So no matter where black does, he wants to stop king d5. So he wants to play bishop f3 when king d5 is threatened. King over, good move. You can't play king g2 because of bishop d5. Bishop here, I move my bishop away. And I'm always going to cover d5. That's the goal. This is very well played from both players so far. Turzega is really pushing, threatening a lot. But to white's credit, he is never allowing, and he's improved his king, so now this pawn never promotes, but he never allowed king d5. That was well played by both players in the time scramble. Problem is that a draw means they fall back to 4.5 out of 5, which means Carlsen is in clear lead with 5 out of 5. Let's take a look. Oh, no, we still got a game going on that has implications on the current standings. I believe here, this is H and F against king. It's possible to lose this. It's a textbook draw most of the time. But in practical play, I think people lose it maybe more often than draw. I'm not sure. I won it myself, and I didn't even know how to win it. I just won it by pushing the pawns. It's very easy to go wrong here. So who's playing here? That's Andrew Tang playing white against Akshat Chandra. Players are on 3.5 out of 4. So the winner will move into the second place group. Let me catch up on the chat. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really enjoying watching Magnus just wait for blunders. It's like watching myself if I played him. I remember I played him in the Pro League, I technically equalized or came close to equalizing. He played quickly. He made some small moves, and I just made a blunder at some point. But like it was rapid chess. At some point, I'm gonna make a blunder. We get low on time. Like something's got to give. Okay, now he's lost the pawn. Now this is a draw. Easy draw. King and pawn, and rook against king and rook. When the king is in the right position, this is an easy draw. When the king is in time to stop the pawn. So this is an easy draw. It's only when the king is cut off that these are lost. Most players move to 4 to 5, so still in contention. Oh, round 5's begun. Let's quickly put up the standings. So 10 rounds, the tournament's halfway through. World champion Carlsen's in the lead, but the chasing pack has Benjamin Bach, Eduardo Iturrasega, and messed up his name there, even though he's a teammate of mine. Michelangelo, who's that? Luka Lenic, who drew Carlsen in the Pro Chess League. So some strong players coming up, and Sergei Nefedov, who's been impressive so far. 2260 FIDE, and in second place. Very impressive. So currently it's a Iturrasega against Carlsen. And Carlsen's going for the double fianchetto setup here. Might be playing c5, he might be playing knight e4. And it's just going to be a battle of center squares. No pawn tension right now. Black trying to win the dark squares. Keeping this pawn flexible, maybe e6 to stop this knight from jumping into d5. White might be getting ready to play d4 actually. And then we might be transposing to a sort of Marazzi structure. Hikaru, by the way, the number 2 seed in the tournament, after losing in the first round to Lawrence Trent, has won 4 games in a row. He's playing Luka Lenic, who is in second place in the group with 4.5 out of 5. And so he can find himself right behind Magnus with a win here. Hikaru against Lenic, that's a big match. That's a big match. Here Magnus is taking a while to figure out how to proceed here. And he's gone for knight e5. Knight h2, quickly played to support f4. Carlsen's won the d4 square, so that's good for him. And now I think he's going to get ready to play e6 now, and maybe f5 and challenge White's pawns. He's got a good knight. He's got his own squares. It's a sharp position, similar to some closed Sicilians. Iturrasega, by the way, up 50 seconds. He's playing instantly. They've played before at the World Blitz Championships. They've played each other. And maybe this is part of his game plan, to play very fast against Magnus. Maybe he's suffered on the clock in the past, and he's like, this game I'm going to play much quicker. Just want to remind everybody, first prize is $500. It's a 10-round event, and prizes are shared. But in order to share it right now, you got to catch up to Carlsen, who's in clear first with 5 out of 5. I do prefer Black's position. Knight on d4 seems like the best outpost on the game. This knight doesn't have the same freedom. Black's got 2 very active bishops. Don't see why this is better or okay for White. I think White's just a little bit worse here. He's restricted by his, his bishop is behind his pawn. Can't really improve this bishop over here, whereas this bishop's got a great diagonal, and this bishop is putting pressure on the center. Oh, that's not what happened. So now Magnus has won the bishop pair, and I'm liking his position. I am liking his position, for sure. White hasn't done anything too wrong though. It's still very balanced. But now we have two bishops against bishop and knight with still a lot of tension in the center. What are you going to do about the f5 pawn if you're Magnus? Are you going to take here? Are you going to take here? Or are you going to let white take on f5? Which would mean this f5 pawn would be very soft. I think Magnus wants to capture because f5 would be soft and it would be on a light square, which means this bishop can't defend it on g7. So white's got some nice looking pawns here, whereas black has two bishops, some dark square control, the b file. Might be playing bishop a6 next move, might be playing queen b4, might be trying to go for an endgame where bishops are better. We'll have to see, but a pretty tense game. Iturzega is a very, very good blitz player. I think he's rated around 2,700 FIDE blitz. So this is the highest rated opponent that Magnus has played so far. He's gone bishop a6. He doesn't want to trade off bishops. He wants to put pressure on the d3 weakness. He might want to assume the c file soon. He might want to trade queens. He might want to put pressure on f4. But he's going to counterattack with those bishops from far away. Iturzega is still playing quickly. He's still up a little bit of time, but it's starting to dissolve. And rook c5, a nice move, covering a lot of these squares and preparing to double. Bishop h3. Back and forth affair here between Carlsen and Iturzega. Norwegian #1 against Venezuelan #1. Queen c6, getting ready to play rook c2. f5 is a double-edged move because it allows black to plant his bishop on e5, which is a great diagonal. But as it stands, it seems like black has more ways to improve the position. If white does not play f5, how does white proceed? Black might play bishop d7, might play rook b8. He's going to push the a pawn. But white is slowly running out of moves that improve his position. Can definitely say I do prefer the position of Carlsen right now. I like the two bishops. I like the b file. Time situation, prefer white obviously. But there's increment, and Magnus is an excellent bullet player, excellent blitz player. Doesn't make mouse slips, doesn't flag, so I'm not too concerned there. Iturzega is matching him move for move though. He's up on time, maintaining that. He's not blundering. He hasn't made that big mistake yet. We haven't entered an endgame, and he's doing what he's supposed to do. He's going to ask for Magnus to actually make a mistake by pushing. It's sort of like in MMA, Anderson Silva, one of the greatest fighters in history. He made a career out of counter striking, letting his opponents come to him and make mistakes. And then Magnus, when he often waits for mistakes, but if the opponents don't make it, then he's got to push the envelope here, and then blunders might happen. Bishop b5, f5 still doesn't seem to work yet. This rook looks funny. This is a pretty funny formation. King is guarded by both rooks here. Magnus has the c file. Let's see what happens. Both players down to 40 seconds. Iturzega is building up an attack. Now f5, queen takes g5, runs into queen takes h7. Let's see. This is getting really sharp. Bishop takes d3 is a threat though. Endgames are going to favor black. The two bishops, some of the weak pawns over here. So Iturzega is trying to avoid an endgame, trying to attack on the h file. Maybe he's going to double over here. I'm not sure. Now the players, now Carlsen is up 15 seconds. Iturzega, he did an excellent job of maintaining the clock. Now he's in trouble. Now he's under 20 seconds, and his king is open. Both kings are open, but when kings are open, you usually want to favor the bishops. Still, he hasn't blundered yet, and a3, trying to win the c3 square. So now rook c3 is probably going to be the follow-up. So he temporarily sacrificed this pawn. Now both of these pawns are weak, but c3 is now accessible for the rooks. Carlsen slowly putting some pressure on taking the initiative away from white. But a very tense game. Very, very tentative play from both players. It's been a very slow build-up. Bishop a4. Now rook c2 is a threat. Rook c2 is a threat because the queen is pinned. Starting to look bad for Turzaga. Oh, queen takes a3, f5 played, rook takes d3, bishop e5, and it's all but over. Turzaga down to 10 seconds. He succumbs to the pressure. Carlsen wins. Let's do a quick replay of what just happened. He got the light squared bishops off. He is threatening rook c2. Turzaga covers the rook f2, but the problem is after queen a3, d3 is hanging, and rook c2 is a threat still after rook f3, so this pawn falls. Turzaga desperately plays f5, rook takes d3, hitting the queen and the knight, and after queen f4, bishop e5, there are no spite checks, there's nothing to do. The queen is being hit, and then rook takes g3 next. Carlsen comfortably wins again, at least in this position, but it was definitely a very tough game for the most part. Carlsen moves to 5 out of 5. Let's check on Nakamura against Lenic. Nakamura down 2 pawns here, dead lost position. 2 connected pawns is almost always a win. If Nakamura loses this game, he is virtually eliminated from a potential pairing with Carlsen. Oh, king e4, that's a good formation. That's a good formation. Black's tied down a little bit here. Knight f2. Maybe put my knight to d3. So world champion Carlsen moves to 6 out of 6, and the chasing pack is shrinking. He's knocking them down one by one. So king d6 played. Oh. Knight e5. What did we miss here? King f5 and king f4 looked pretty good, didn't it? So Lenic here has blundered, and this is a draw. Still, that means Nakamura will be 1.5 points behind Carlsen. He sacrificed his knight for the 2 pawns. But I'm a little bit... He's letting his time go down. Looks like Nakamura is letting his time go down before he captures on d4. Or he might be lagging. I might be lagging, I'm not sure. No, he let his time go down to 0.03 seconds. So Nakamura letting this time go down, giving the fans a bit of a scare, making things exciting. Black messed up a little bit here, I guess. Maybe can you put your king here and maybe go to the side, king f4 sort of thing. That should be good. I assume this is winning. So a missed opportunity by Luka Lenic. And if we take a look at the current standings, let me put this game on first. This game is between Moskalenko against Tang. And looks like they're shuffling. King c5. But Benjamin Bok from the Netherlands is in clear second place with 5.5 out of 6. He's emerged in clear second. Everybody else has drawn or lost. So that means next round's pairing is guaranteed. Bok against Carlsen, Norway against the Netherlands. This is a draw. The reason it's a draw, I mean, you can't play for a win as white because after b4, king b5, king takes, king a4, king takes d5. King takes here, this position. I have king a4. You don't want to play for the win as white. Black ends up winning the pawn. So the current standings after 6 rounds. Carlsen 6 out of 6, Bok 5.5 out of 6, Chandra, Lenic, Vrolik, Spartacus, Platy. Who's Bilelu? Some new names. Bilal. Okay, I'm terrible at saying French names. Oh, I'm not going to attempt that. I'll have to think about how to say that. But a lot of players are 5 out of 6, but only one player in second place. That's Benjamin Bok. Norway against Netherlands. Nakamura gives up a critical draw. He's right now in 12th place with 4.5 out of 6. Question is, will Magnus Carlsen get 10 out of 10? Is there a perfect score prize? Is there a perfect score prize? Maybe there is. That would be cool. It's very hard to do that in Blitz. Oh, there's one game going on still. I was waiting for the games to start. I didn't realize there's still a game going on. And we have Indian lad against newborn now. Rook endgame where the players have been repeating for a while. They're on move 117. How do you blunder? I want to show you guys. I'll show you after the game. I'll show you after the game what the trick in the position is. But this is a draw. Both Black's king can't run away from the checks, and White's king can't get out of the corner, and everything else is the same structure. But the trick in the position was that after king c2, if you decide to be a greedy Guillermo and take on b6. Wait a second. No. Okay, the games have started. That game ended in a draw as it should have, so don't need to say anything more about that. But neither side could make progress. So round 7, Carlsen has White against Buck. I believe they played the most recent World Blitzer in Rapid Championship. Let me check. Carlsen Buck 2016. They did play at the World Rapid Championship. Carlsen played the London system and won very comfortably as White. This time he goes for sort of Larsen setup with b3. So a very flexible setup for Whites. You fianchetto both bishops. You get a lot of pieces on the board. You get a contested middle game. All the pawns, all the pieces, lots of possibilities, lots to think about. You just play some chess. He's not striving for that opening edge. He just wants to play with the pieces. He wants to outplay his opponents. Bach is playing very quickly. He spent no time. This is a pretty common opening setup, especially in Blitz. A lot of players like to play this as White. You can kind of pre-move, right? You can make your moves no matter what. When you fianchetto, it doesn't really matter what your opponents do. They usually can't stop it. So it's a move that it's an opening that you can just play 10, 15 moves right off the bat and end up with a time advantage. So h6, maybe giving the bishop an escape route. Queen on e7, bishop on e6, keep the rook restricted on a1. He goes for e4, okay. Things are going to sharpen up now. Things are going to sharpen up. He takes back with a knight. He wants to maybe clear open the d file. No, he takes with the rook. That's interesting. Running into bishop g6 and maybe accepting a weak d3 pawn. A very double-edged transaction there. because d3 is sort of soft. But on the plus side, you have the e-file, semi-open e-file. Your bishop is free. Black's bishop is good. This is, yeah, so now the structure has changed. Queen c3, threatening checkmate, and also unpinning himself from the d3 pawn. Oh, that's not what I meant to play. So queen c3. I keep forgetting, if I make a move, the system accepts it, because there is the guess the move feature on Chess.com now, where you can make a move before the players do. All right, so white has achieved d4. He's got a bit of a space advantage clearly here with d4 and c4. Black's playing the sort of defensive formation, e6 and c6, often seen in the Scandinavian defense, waiting for white to push. Problem is, playing passive positions against Carlsen is not recommended. He can push, he's comfortable, he's patient, he's up 20 seconds now, he's got the two bishops now, and every single decision in the last few moves seems to have been favoring white. Two bishops, open position, he's playing quicker. The direction of this game, knight b6 though, the pawn is pinned. If Black can trade off more pieces, that'll be critical. You cannot let these bishops just take over the position. But queen d1, and you can't take on d5 because the rook is hanging on e8. I think Magnus is winning. I don't see a move. I'm just going to take on e6. You can't play e5, it's hanging. But I'm taking on e6, and the bishops just dominate this position. Again, Carlsen just outplaying Bach in the middle game, getting the two bishops, getting the space, breaking through, playing on the back line until something profitable came, and here it is. Here it is. This looks really, really, really. I mean, now you start looking for tactics. Rook lifts. You start considering to take and take. Ideas like this come to mind. You can also move your rook back. All these options are very tempting. Rook back, and he's done it. He's up 30 seconds. He's still playing quickly, but it's an open position with two amazing bishops. And the queen is effective. The rooks are doubled on a target. Everything is good here. I definitely think this is winning for Carlsen. Bach might play queen g5, threatening to take on g3 because the pawn is pinned. I'm just going to play king g2. Just king g2. Simple, effective. It's still pinned. Rook takes e8. Looking worse and worse because Bach is tanking on the clock. So he gets out of the pin, he moves his rook over, but now I'm thinking about queen c2. I just realized that runs into knight takes d5, and there's a discovered knight f4 check, so he plays rook e5 first. Rough. Bach is hanging on for dear life here. Carlsen's trying to make this work at some point. Not yet. You gotta move your queen somewhere. He's just figuring out, where do I move the queen? Maybe queen to c1, and then take on e6. Maybe bishop h5. A few options here to think about. He's taking some time. That definitely means he's looking for tactics. No, that's not the move. He plays queen c1, and he is going to take here. Pretty sure. What else? You have to move your queen. You can move your queen to f4, but then the d5 pawn is hanging. Carlsen getting low on time here. He does not find a knockout move. Magnus Carlsen getting into serious time pressure he's behind on the clock with less than 30 seconds. And knight takes d5 now. Why can't you take the pawn? You can also play bishop d6, pinning the rook. Couple nice options. Bishop d5, rook takes d5, Bach up a pawn. Benjamin Bach up a pawn. And has some decent chances here to hold, to win. We're not sure, especially because this pawn now is hanging, which restores material equality, but I don't think he's in any he doesn't have any issues here. Queen c2, threatening queen f2 and the bishop. Bishop here, maybe queen e2. Queen e2 runs into queen f5 though. Oh, tactics. Tactics abound. But Bach is up a pawn and they're in a time scramble here. Benjamin Bach is playing for two results, a win or a draw. He's up a pawn, a clear pawn on the queen side here. We're seeing the world champion in some, he couldn't find a way to use the bishops to break through, and now he is going to have to defend an endgame. So queen here, I'm expecting rook b8. Oh, Bach gives up the material. I think he's just headed for a draw. Rook takes a3 and queen f3, king g2. He's going to go for the draw, but not a bad result. At least we see that you can draw blood from the world champion here. He struggled in that portion of the game. Oh, Magnus playing for a win, keeping the queens on the board. And he sees a weak pawn. He's going for this equal material. He's going to play this on. Carlsen's going to play this on. He's piling on the pressure, playing really fast all of a sudden now. And he's got a little bit of a better side of his rook endgame due to this weak pawn. Likely a draw. However, if anybody can win, it's white. It's Magnus Carlsen. He's got some sort of idea here to play for the win. I've actually seen Magnus win these positions before in Blitz, so don't be surprised if something happens. Don't be surprised if something happens. Bach was up a pawn and he really did not come out of that well. He's up a pawn, a clear pawn, and now he's just in a rook endgame with a worse position. And now the king is cut off. So Magnus cutting off this king. Maybe he wants to, at some point, target g7. King f4. Making some progress, though. Making a little bit of progress. Still a draw. Still a draw, but if Bach gets low on time, blunders can happen. Like, if you trade off the rooks, some of these pawn endgames could be winning for white. He finally pushes. Okay, I mean, I think it's going to be a draw. Bach is no slouch, but he's going to have to prove a bit more before Magnus agrees to something. But I mean, he was up a clear pawn in an endgame, so he could have pushed much better. Magnus now has the potential for an outside pawn. Oh, rook check. His king is cut off. If his king wasn't cut off, he'd have really good chances here. So he's making some progress, although it's still a draw. King is cut off. You can't really win this with the king cut off, unfortunately. So they're on move 80 right now. Carlsen playing against second place Benjamin Bach from the Netherlands. It's a rook endgame, even material. And he finally goes for f7. So rook here, rook c5, check is given. And they're going to repeat, I believe. No, they're going for this. Bach playing rook h4, a nice move, just cutting the king off. And Carlsen offers a draw. Carlsen has offered a draw. He says, you know, you've played well enough, you've defended, you've shown your defense. You deserve a draw. But a pretty back and forth affair here. Carlsen finally gives up half a point, but he's still in clear first. A big result for Benjamin Bach, drawing the world champion with black. Benjamin Bach also beat Hikaru Nakamura, I believe, in October at the Isle of Man tournament. So he's had some top-notch results against top 10 players. So the current standings right now are Carlsen clear first, 6.5 out of 7 with three rounds to go. We have Bach with 6 out of 7. I have to pronounce his name. I need to improve my French. Bilelu has 6 out of 7. Bilal. I am Bilal Belachin from France. That's my attempt. He's on 6 out of 7, and he's going to play Magnus probably, so I better learn how to pronounce his name. In the chasing pack, starting from 4th, we have Indian Lad, Chandra, Lanic, Vrolik, Spartak, Sam Sevian. Who else? Hikaru. We got Nak over here, Turazaga, Moskalenko, many players. But unless Magnus gives up another half point or point, they can't really catch up to him. So let's get back to the game. And the game is between, look at that, Queen H5. Queen H5 has been played. This is called the Patzer's opening, for those who don't know. Even on our YouTube channel, we actually have a video on this. Queen H5, the Patzer attack. That's what a lot of people call this. You just go for checkmate in 4 moves. So, trolling or being serious, I'm not sure. I'll let you guys decide, but it's a tricky line. We've actually covered it on the channel. That is the first time this event, Magnus Carlsen, has been faced with a checkmate threat from the opening. Don't think you see that every day. And White has spent no time. I believe he's played this opening many times in the past. He seems very comfortable. He's playing the theoretical moves. This is still theory. And he's up 30 seconds. We'll see if it pays off. Once again, the first checkmate threat on Carlsen, right from the opening. Bishop c4. You know, that's sort of the pre-move, maybe the pre-move attack too. If your opponent pre-moves, they get mated. You know, it keeps people honest. In bullet, that might actually work. In bullet, you play e4, they play e5, you play bishop c4, they play, let's say, knight c6, and you play queen f3 or queen h5, and if they pre-move knight f6, they end up getting checkmated. So in bullet, I've seen people lose like that. But in blitz, against Magnus, not so easy. So easy. Hey, even if you lose, you're known as the guy who went for the 4-move checkmate against Magnus. By the way, Hikaru Nakamura's played this opening in a classical game as well, so it's not as obscure as it may seem. So Magnus has the 2 bishops, opposite side castling. He's looking to counterattack on the queen side. White, for his part, wants to play maybe h4, knight g3, and h5, and break through on the h file. d5, ooh, I like this. b5, cb5, and d5. Things are really sharpening up here on board 1, but this is a very this is a very double-edged position. This is definitely a position you can go wrong with either color. Magnus is going to have to handle this with extreme care. And he's playing principle. He's just counterattacking. He has to, because otherwise White will grab the initiative very quickly. So after bc6, d4, knight a4 maybe? What's going on here? What is going on? So if you take here, d4, I'm not sure if d4 is the move, but no, maybe you take here. If you take here, knight takes e4 and a2 is hanging. That's the idea. Okay, so that's what White's thinking about. If you take on c6, I take on e4, and your knight is under attack, and you have to defend a2. And remember, with 2 bishops, open positions are what you want to strive for. So Magnus is feeling very confident that if he can have this sort of open position, open battle, that his bishops will come out ahead. Looking like a nice center over here. Looking like a nice center. Knight a4, maybe wants to jump to c5, wants to get rid of those bishops ASAP. If you take here, I play knight c5, and I want to win your bishop pair. World champion Carlsen. He's got a half-point lead on the field right now. So still everything to play for. And another big game this round is Benjamin Bok against Hikaru Nakamura. Nakamura's up a minute. Bok's king is sort of exposed. But it is an endgame. Material's even. White even has the outside passed pawn. Anything could happen here. So we're keeping an eye out on that because Benjamin Bok is in second place. And he's one of the few guys left who could realistically surpass Magnus or catch up to him. Magnus here went for queen b5. Queen takes b5. Rook c8. And he says that this endgame is good for black. That's what Magnus is saying, that this is a good endgame for black. What do you guys think? Rook d3. Black's got some really ugly double e-pawns, but the benefit of those double e-pawns is you can double on the f-file. This pawn is sort of soft. The pawns are on the wrong color for black in some ways, but the f-file might be weak, so I think Magnus is planning to double on the f-file and play bishop h6. Maybe b4 first, maybe b4, and a5. Okay, he does this. Carlsen is going to double on the f-file and keep these rooks passive on d3 and f1. We're going to see a technical display here. Whether it pays off, I'm not sure, but Magnus wants to go into this endgame. He's got his own weaknesses, though. That's something we haven't seen too much. He's got his own weaknesses over here. And c3, I mean, you can find yourself lost in some of these endgames. The material is even, and in some ways, black has a worse pawn structure. So Carlsen is going to have to come up with something here. Because this is an endgame he might even find himself on the white side of sometimes. Playing against this and that. But piling on some decent pressure here on the c-file. Still looking for a breakthrough. I agree with this decision. You don't want to trade. You need to defend d4. a4, okay. Anything can happen here. His opponent playing very well, even on the clock, and fighting hard. Pretty sure his opponent is a teenage French international master. Oof, e5. So now decisions have to be made. We got some real tension in the center. I don't think you can take on d4 because I have rook d7, and after bishop c3 I have b4, and you're going to lose a piece. So tactics are in favor of white in that line, but maybe you should just take here first. Take on e4 and then maybe try to go for something like that. I'm not sure. Some calculation. He's taking a bit too much time here, though. He took 20 seconds on that. He had to play a bit quicker. Can't get this low in time with some big decisions to be made. Now he's going for it because there's no b4. But after here, bishop c3, knight f4, rook d2. It's white up a pawn here. There's no b4. He calculated. He's like, I'm up a pawn, rook d2. Now, this doesn't mean it's a great pawn. This is weak, this is weak. King is vulnerable. Everything's pinned. But a pawn... Oh, knight here. So now knight e2. Knight e2. White offers a draw. White has now offered a draw up a pawn. He wants to see what Magnus does. I like that draw offer. Low on time. Try to confuse your opponent. Plus, you're up a pawn temporarily. If you're going to offer a draw, that was his last opportunity to do it. Up a pawn. So now we're playing an endgame. Even material. This is weak and this is weak. So who's going to arrive first? Maybe objectively this is a draw, but the players are low on time, so somebody might arrive first. Who's going to do so? I'm not sure. Magnus has a more active king, but the a-pawn also runs pretty quickly. I mean, king up, push. We might be headed to a draw here. If Magnus draws, Benjamin Bok has a realistic chance of catching up to world champion Magnus Carlsen and making this a very close race. So rook f5, push zip on. Oh, knight e1, and you cannot stop this from queening. Even though white gets his own queen, Carlsen is going to have the queen first, and he's going to have the first chance to throw checks at his opponent. Magnus Carlsen once again emerges ahead in an endgame. He calculates that out beautifully. He's one move ahead, and that's all it takes to checkmate with a queen, rook, and a knight on the board. Queen check here. I assume this is winning. He's going to have to find it. If he does... Check. Check. Everything looks pretty good. Yeah, we have a checkmate approaching, guys. Queen f2, rook e1. Queen c2 is mate. Queen d3, queen c2. That's checkmate. Carlsen moves to 7.5 out of 8. A really, really nice sequence. Low on time. He was the one who found the most precise moves. And he was faster. Maybe maybe white had to consider sacrificing quickly for this pawn. And then trying to win black's rook for his a pawn. Maybe rook g1 was the move. Maybe rook g1, I'm not sure. Some calculation, but with low time, Carlsen's instincts held up. In this game, Bok and Hikaru drew, so that means current standings. Let's bring them up. Carlsen, 7.5 out of 8. Full point lead on the field. This is the biggest lead he's had, and the chasing pack is a full point behind. So pretty much Magnus Carlsen now has to lose in order for him to relinquish the lead and relinquish control of this event. But the way he's been playing, he was a bit iffy against Bok, bit iffy in this game. But he's been pretty clutch. When the clocks have been going down, his nerves have held up. Akshat Chandra might be a likely pairing. Sam Sevian. We might be seeing, USA against Norway in round 9. One of the teenage grandmasters, one of the many that the US now boasts. One game remaining before we get into round 9. There are 2 rounds remaining. It's a 10-round event. And here we go. Round 9, Magnus Carlsen against Akshat Chandra. Newly minted grandmaster residing in St. Louis. Carlsen opens up the d4 and he goes for his London system. One of his favorite setups. Bishop f4, knight f3 is going to go e3, c3, knight d2. This is so fashionable these days. If you are a player who plays black, you might as well book up against London because it occurs so much in practice. Chandra blitzing out some moves, definitely has some preparation here due to, he's an active tournament player. I'm sure he's faced this many times. And he's opted for a pretty aggressive setup here with queen b6, putting pressure on white. Wants to win this bishop. h6. Maybe he's going to move the knight out of the way, play a6, and try to target this b2 pawn. Carlsen, if he wins this, Magnus Carlsen wins this game, he guarantees himself at least a tie for first. Because he's got a full point lead with only 2 rounds remaining. But so far the position is balanced, just like it normally is when it's a London system. It's a matter of preference, but objectively, black's not really done anything too wrong. And Magnus quickly plays knight e5, trying to provoke. Bishop takes b5, a takes b5, and he wants a mini victory, claiming the a file. With Akshat Chandra, 17 or 18 years old. A lot of young, Magnus just played, Magnus has been playing a lot of young players this event. Younger than him. He's becoming a veteran, which is disconcerting for even guys like me. I'm going to feel like the veteran pretty soon as well. So he takes with the queen though. He doesn't try to win the a file. I think he was afraid of, I'm not going to analyze much, but I think he's afraid of maybe this pawn on b5 becoming weak. But still a pretty symmetrical position. And I think Magnus is adopting a strategy this game of just waiting for a mistake. White's got a little bit more space, but two pieces have been traded off. He's got no clear edge on any side of the board. He's got a nice knight here, but it can be traded off at some point. I'm attracted to the move knight f5, knight d6. Knight on d6 looks very effective. And a6, okay, well that is a concession. Maybe it won't happen, we won't see it in action, but now I've seen Carlsen play the structure before. This controls these two pawns. I've seen him enter a better endgame. There's a game he played recently where he won a game solely because he got a pawn on a5. I recall it vividly from the World Blitz and Rapid Championships. He went into a rook endgame and he claimed an edge due to having this pawn on a5, controlling two pawns. And he ended up with a pleasant endgame. So I know, I've seen this before. This is deja vu. He's going to use this pawn. He's going to take and play b3 now and probably recycle another knight onto c5. b3, yes. And he's going to put some pressure on b7. White is now starting to claim a bit of an edge. I've seen him win a game like this before. I really have. So I know Magnus is in his comfort zone right now. He's getting that knight to c5. He's protecting a5. He's bringing this rook over to b1. This is starting to look really good for White because he's going to get free pressure on b7. When you give Magnus free pressure, he takes advantage of that. This a5 pawn really fixing these pawns on the queen side, freezing them up and allowing White to play his game. So maybe rook b1 or knight c5. Rook b1. This is very, very, very annoying. Knight here. He wants to play knight b5 and jam the b file. But again, we get into an endgame, and a lot of these rook endgames are going to be better for White because, in effect, White will be playing up a pawn because a5 controls these two. So in the center, let's say this knight moves out of the way, we trade off some pieces. White has the potential for a passed pawn in the center, whereas Black is going to have to work very hard to somehow get something going on the queen side. Carlsen's definitely had this position, similar position before, playing for the endgame advantage. Just think about this. There's a potential for a pass pawn for White. This controls both of these guys. So Magnus has a pull here, and he's up a full 50 seconds. A win for Carlsen guarantees at least a tie for first. So rook c7, getting ready to challenge the c-file. Magnus says, okay, let's go for the endgame. Knight d3, and I expect trades. We might even have everything traded off. Is that queen and knight? We'll see. But White can definitely claim an edge. This knight on c5, the knight can always go back to c5, putting pressure on these pawns. This a5 pawn is not being targeted much at all. Magnus is going to go for an endgame, and this is getting better and better. I can say for sure, there's hardly anybody on earth who can go toe-to-toe with Magnus in an endgame where they're slightly worse. Like holding those, there's very few players who can keep up the quality of moves that he puts out. His output in endgames is off the charts. Nothing happens and then somebody's lost. So g4, Chandra down to 20 seconds. He doesn't know what to do. If things get traded off, White is going to push a pawn at some point. He's going to get his knight to e5. b7 is really weak. White has control over the c-file, and you cannot trade. Queen c7, I take and I play knight c5 and I win the b7 pawn. Chandra really in a desperate situation here. Why is he taking so much time? People are wondering. Because he's uncomfortable. This is actually an extremely unpleasant position. Despite the material equality, White has full control over almost every aspect of the board. The queen side, the center. Queen starting to invade. Maybe g3, king g2. Maybe knight d3, knight c5. Slow moves, but Chandra down to 9 seconds. And still figuring out how to hold this. Knight c4 might even be a move here. Maybe not. I want knight c4, knight d6, queen c5. Wins material. That's just a cheapo though. Magnus is now looking for a knockout blow. I think he might end up going for g3, actually. Okay, knight d7, meaning the queen has to stay close by. Knight c7. Sorry, knight c5. Knight c5 is maybe a move, maybe not. Knight c5, king f7 holds. Carlsen getting dangerously close to something, but at the same time, his knight is pinned. He's got to be a little bit careful. He's got to be a little bit careful here, actually. I don't like what he's done. I do not like what Carlsen has done here because that knight is pinned. That knight is pinned, and now king e8 is a threat. No, it's not because of knight takes f6. King e8, knight takes f6, and the knight falls over here. Oh, now there might be g5, or this pawn is weak. Okay, Carlsen now once again putting on a lot of pressure. You can't play here. Knight takes f6. Carlsen is now in a winning queen and pawn endgame. Black just couldn't hold the position low in time. That's another pawn. You can just trade queens if you want. Queen check. And queen c5 or queen e5. Game over. Magnus Carlsen wins again. Made it look very easy. He had no risk. He was pushing. And there you go. 8.5 out of 9. But this pawn on a5, I'm telling you, these endgames are very unpleasant. He's won a few like this before. That's what he does best. Slow, steady pressure, and very little risk. Full control. Carlsen moves to 8.5 out of 9. Let's move to board 2. Let's watch Hikaru. I almost forgot about him. Not because he's been playing that badly, but Magnus has not really given up any points. And Hikaru he lost in the first round and he gave up 2 draws. Not his best result, but it is a very strong field. Bishop c8 by Naka. And now he's going to win this pawn and this pawn. He's going to have a bishop and 2 pawns against knight, because this knight's going to have to move. And Hikaru is going to go into what looks like, look at the time, guys. 2 minutes to 14 seconds. That's brutal. You can just take. You can just take the knight. Naka here has 2 minutes. He is torturing his opponent, playing with him. He can just take the knight. That's not stalemate. Naka, and he's going to take with the pawn. And he's going to push the pawn, put his bishop back. He wins. But he's fighting for third. He's fighting for second. He's not fighting for first. Let's bring up the current standings. Carlsen, 8.5 out of 9. Sam Sevian, 7.5. The only one in second place. 4 players in third. Luka Lenic, Hikaru Nakamura, Alexander Moskalenko, and Plati 3 is Alan Pichot from Argentina. Those guys cannot catch Magnus. So it's going to be Sevian against Carlsen. Round 10. Sevian's the only one who can stop Carlsen from cleaning up. Let's check out some players we haven't seen before. Let's check out this game. 2 national masters dueling it out, playing down 2 queens. This is the sort of stuff you mainly see on the lower boards, where they're playing down 2 queens, things like that. They're just fighting it out. They're just enjoying Blitz. Let's take a break from that crazy high-level chess Carlsen's playing and just appreciate the lone king here, fighting against the world, fighting against 2 pawns and 2 queens. Let's appreciate the lower boards of the event. Big Mac 2500 from Spain, fighting on for dear life here, deciding not to resign. He wants to go down maybe against 4 queens. This is what happens on the lower boards. They're just dueling it out. King against 2 queens, 2 pawns. The struggle is real, and he offers a draw. He offers a draw. I mean, this is the sort of stuff, you know, chess is difficult until you get to the top, where it's, you know, comfortable events. You faced, you know. Look at that. He's fighting on, offering the draw, running the king around. This is what it's all about here. We got Magnus Carlsen playing some clean chess, and we got these guys embodying the hustler spirit in chess, you know. Just making moves, torturing us a little bit, giving us a break from Magnus and his extremely accurate chess. This is like chess club. This is like Fight Club over here. Just pushing the pieces. These guys are just having fun playing chess. They're just enjoying it. Can't fault this. One guy likes playing with his king. One guy likes playing with his queens. It's a free world out there on the chessboard. Look at that. Some nice trolling to give us a break. These players are just giving us a break. And he offers another draw. 3 draw offers by Big Mac 2500. They're on move 107. Going hard over here. Going hard. And he finally pushes that pawn to stop the 50 move rule. So we can go, theoretically, I think 150 more moves. Because what's 1, 2, 3 pawn moves. You move your pawn before move 50. So we got 150 more moves to go. This is what it's all about. The lone king against the world. Maybe a bit of a metaphor, you know? Big Mac 2500 against 1 random. It says he's from Fiji. I'm not sure if that's true. Maybe there's not a lot of things to do in Fiji, so he's enjoying his queens. These guys are going for about 250 moves, I believe that's the goal. And they're allowed to do it. That's the thing. That's it. So let's just sit back, relax, grab a drink. We still got another game of Magnus remaining. I'll say one thing though. These guys might actually, they're not trolling us. They might be trolling Magnus. Think about that. Magnus has to wait for these games to finish before he can win the tournament. It's like if I was playing tennis and Roger Federer has to wait for me to finish playing with him on. And we like, you know, it's like, think about that. Think about that. It's like me playing football with my buddies and Messi has to wait for us before he can kick it. Oof. That's pretty funny. That's a good way to troll. It's very effective, actually. This is something to learn from. Think about me shooting some hoops and like LeBron has to wait for me to make a basket. That might take a long time. So they're on move 142 and this is all legal, guys. They still got a good 120 moves to go and the whole tournament is waiting. I'm enjoying it though. Well, I'm enjoying... I need to grab a drink, that's why. Do I have a drink nearby? No, I don't. I'll actually stay and commentate. I'll stay until the very end. Hikaru says in the chat, is this a joke? We're getting players requesting for them to ban. Benjamin Bach is asking Chess.com to ban these players. You're starting to see some protests. Protests are happening. I wouldn't be surprised to see a battalion of grandmasters with signs getting ready to march. So the protests are starting to happen, the riots. Look at that. Chaos is about to... That's good. Anarchy. It's going to make the tournament more exciting. We might see some people withdraw from the tournament and protest. But they're allowed to do that, guys. The 50 move rule. You need to push a pawn within that 50 move frame. So by move 50, you push that pawn. And Big Mac wins by resignation. But Big Mac is playing black. A big upset. The king beats the world. Black wins. Big Mac beats 1 random. The king beats 2 queens and 2 pawns. That's the underground. That's the underdog story of the year. I mean, who cares about board 1? Champion Carlsen. The king is worth something, guys. You need to use your king in chess. That's the lesson of the day. Don't neglect your king. Don't always protect it. Kings can go out and take pawns and do things as well. The king wins. So the game concludes and Big Mac, the Spanish king, wins against 2 queens and 2 pawns. And so now we're back to board 1, round 10, final round to go. Magnus Carlsen, let me put up the standings for y'all. 1 sec. Carlsen has a full point. The only way for him to not win clear first is to lose. He's playing Sam Sevian. That's the only match that is for first place. Sevian has white and he has to win in order to catch Carlsen. Here we go. Here we go. And Magnus played... What opening did he play? He played the Berlin. Draw secures first place for him. But if he wins this, 9.5 out of 10 is a monster score. You guys see his rating? He's getting very close to 3,000 Blitz. 3,000 Blitz is ridiculous on Chess.com. For perspective, Naka's 2866. And 100 points, 150 points is a big gap. Sevian gives up the bishop pair. So now we have a crippled pawn structure over here. Not that crippled, but crippled. But two bishops against two knights. So it is going to be dynamic. Looks like white is threatening in some lines. Actually, no. He can't play knight f4 yet because of e4. But it's two bishops against two knights. Carlsen has a bit of a worse pawn structure. But this looks good for black. It looks like the two bishops, you have potential to open up at some point. F5, D5, C5. I don't know. These pawns are all very loose. I like black's position. Rook e3, okay. So Sevian might be preparing to play knight e2, knight g3, and transferring this knight over to the king side, protecting e4, and opening up his rook on the c file. He's got to win here. He's got to win here if he wants to stop Magnus. But if he draws, he guarantees himself at least a share of second. b5, hoping that Magnus takes and blunders because of knight d5. Knight d5 was the cheeky threat. Sevian, a draw for Sevian ensures a decent cash prize. A win is all the glory. Beating Carlsen, beating Carlsen is worth way more in my opinion, but that's way easier said than done, especially in a position here that I think is totally fine for black. Black's got two bishops, and he's slowly building up pressure on the center pawns. There is a prize pool. First place is $500. Second is $400. Third is $250. Fourth is $150. And fifth is $100. So top 5 get a prize. And if you tie for a top 5 prize, you share it with the other people. So tie breaks aren't a factor. So if Sevian wins, he ties for first with Magnus, and they essentially split first and second, $900, which equates to $450. Position is opening up here, but you see Carlsen up 20 seconds, and I mean, it's an open position that should favor the bishops. So no matter what's really going on, it's not the strategical style that white normally wants. When you play with the knights against the bishop, when you play against double pawns, you don't want those pawns to undouble. So Carlsen's definitely doing good in this position. I expect him to just double rooks and try to pile on the pressure here. I mean, he might be thinking about, can I just take on d4? Again, a draw ensures clear first. A win is just a masterful performance, and a loss, well, that's the only thing you want to avoid. So he's not going to take extreme risk, I suspect, because it's been a very clean event. He has never been in a lost position so far, thus far. World Champion Magnus Carlsen making an appearance on Chess.com's monthly Title Tuesday event. Remember, this is the first Tuesday of every month. It's a strong event, cash prizes, and interesting things happen. As we say, anything happens. You know, this is where a bunch of title chess players come and they fight. So it ends up being pretty exciting. So now we have an end game here, and Magnus is on the better side of it. We've heard that before. He's got the bishop. He's got targets. He's got targets here, 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 and now he's got a target on a3 because that's on the same color as his bishop. So Carlsen is increasing his advantage, increasing his time advantage, and this is looking worse and worse. Check, and maybe he'll recycle this rook to e8, to b8, and to b3. Bishop b6, rook c3. Anyways, the pawns are favorable for, the current pawn structure is favorable for black. White's threatening rook c4 here to pick up the a4 pawn, so maybe rook e8, rook a8 is called for, I'm not sure. You can still play rook b3, but that pawn will fall after trade everything rook b2. Again, depends what Carlsen wants. He can draw this position on demand. But in order for him to win, he'll have to find a little something extra. So he plays d5, provoking Sevian to play e5, putting more pawns on the dark squares. That's what Carlsen wants. d5 also stops white from playing rook c4. That looks like a class move to me. And maybe he'll swing the rook around. There. A long journey, but it makes some sense. Okay, he goes for f6 instead, trying to immediately put some pressure on the center. What he'd like is after f e5, d e5, Carlsen would be able to play c5 and get... Oh, is that a blunder? Bishop a5. Bishop a5, bishop a5 by Carlsen. Bishop a5 wins in exchange. Magnus Carlsen here has a win. He finds it. A rook is going to fall. And there we go. The world champion, is going to move to 9.5 out of 10. He's going to wipe out the field today. That's the story of the event. His opponents have been making blunders. He's up in exchange here. There's a little bit of counterplay, but we're talking about Magnus. He is up 15 seconds. He's up a rook. In exchange, I mean. He's going to convert this, most likely. So there we go. And now it's going to be a battle for second place. I expect maybe a rook f6, knight here, rook here, and he's going to play h5, and that's going to be game over. The knight has to move. There's going to be a resignation from Sam Sevian. Magnus Carlsen takes the May Title Tuesday with outstanding 9.5 out of 10, even as a world champion, even as maybe the best Blitz player, best speed chess player in the world. I think that's a fair claim for him. 9.5 out of 10 is higher than his expected score. 9.5 out of 10 is like, you know, above a 3,000 performance. It's just ridiculous. Push the pawn, play rook b1, king cut off. Sevian's playing on, might as well. You're playing the world champion. But the result is not in doubt. And the resignation is there. There we go. So now it's a battle for second place. Hikaru has climbed his way back to second. If we look at the current standings, guys, Carlsen 9.5 clear first. We got a couple players on 8, but there's still games ongoing. So let's quickly rush over to see who rounds out the podium. We got a game right here between Luka Lenic playing black against, I think this is Moisenko. Yes. Severmorsky is Alexander Moisenko from Ukraine. Two very strong grandmasters here, and black flags here. He's forked and he flags. I'm not sure if that was forced. He has rook d1 in this position, although that's a really bad position. So Lenic gets knocked out. A win would have put him in the group with for second place. So Moisenko wins this game. Does that mean? And we have Benjamin Bach. Yes. Although these guys can't catch. No, these guys have 6.5. I think that's clear then. Hikaru Nakamura and Bilelu tie for second and third with 8 out of 10. Magnus beat everybody so badly that 8 out of 10 gets you a very, very decent prize because he knocked everyone down. He only gave up one draw, and that was to Benjamin Bach. Benjamin Bach here is now winning against Spartak. A great result for the Dutchman, who drew Hikaru and beat quite a few grandmasters en route to a 7.5 out of 10 performance, which should net him a tie for fourth. Not a big prize, but he actually played a stronger field than a lot of players because he started off strong. So Bach wins. We're starting to see the final tally over here. Let's bring it up one more time. Carlsen 9.5 out of 10. Bilelu 8 out of 10. Hikaru 8 out of 10. 5 players on 7.5. They're going to share fourth and fifth. Fourth is 150, fifth is 100. So 5 players, $250. They each get $50. 7.5 out of 10. That's Sam Sevian, Benjamin Bach, Moskalenko, Newborn Now, Severmorsky. Those guys get 50, and that rounds out the prizes. Let's see if there's a few more games left. Oh, Big Mac is playing. The Lone King is playing, guys. Oh, no. We got the legendary Spanish king here playing with the king once again. Big Mac is playing with a king against 2 queens. Is he going to draw? No, he goes down here against Helgi Olafsson, the Icelandic Grandmaster, finishing him ruthlessly with the 2 queens against king. But we're seeing this guy often finding himself down 2 queens. Big Mac, a story of the event as well. But anyways, that was May 2017 Title Tuesday here on Chess.com. Very strong event, very exciting, lots of different games going on at once. I'm going to leave the standings on the board, but I hope you guys enjoyed the tournament. I absolutely did. It's really a treasure, really a treat to see Magnus playing at a high level. Like, when Magnus is in form, it's pretty ridiculous. I thought we saw some incredibly consistent, strong chess from him today. Some really high caliber chess, more than his usual, which is already, the best in the world. But it was exceptional today. A very strong event. The next one is next month, but hold on. Tomorrow is the first match in the Speed Chess Championships. Hikaru's playing, and I'm going to play the promo that gives you all the details. So stay for this.
2017 Speed Chess Championship brings together 16 of the world's strongest, most superhuman chess players. Among them, you'll find none other than former Women's World Chess Champion, Grandmaster Ho Yifan, the reigning U.S. Chess Champion, Grandmaster Wesley So, World Chess Championship title challenger, Grandmaster Sergei Karyakin, the most feared man in bullet chess today, Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura, and of course, the Grandmaster Blitz Battle Championship winner and reigning World Chess Champion, Magnus Carlsen. Don't miss a single moment of the action as these elite chess players battle it out for the better part of a $50,000 prize fund. The action kicks off on May 3rd when Hikaru Nakamura takes on the first qualified challenger, with Magnus Carlsen playing his first match on October 5th. All the action will be brought to you on chess.com/TV, twitch.tv/chess, or one of our numerous foreign language portals. Fans can find coverage in Russian, French, Portuguese, Spanish, and many more. Go to chess.com TV to see the full schedule of events for the 2017 Speed Chess Championship, fill out a bracket for a chance to win big prizes, and don't miss a single moment as we show you the world's best chess players in this thrilling esports event. We'll see you on chess.com.
And there you have it, guys. Speed Chess Championships. It starts tomorrow. If you want to know about the programming that Chess.com offers, go to www.chess.com//TV, and there's a schedule there. And so tomorrow, we have Hikaru Nakamura playing. I believe he's playing Sergei Grigorians, and that is at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. It generally runs 3 hours, and Danny Wrench and Anna Rudolph will be the commentators. So don't miss that. Nakamura against Grigorians, deathmatch, Speed Chess Championships tomorrow. That's round 1 of this elimination event. That's going to kick off a very busy year of programming and high-level blitz. Well, actually, we already had the Pro Chess League, but that's going to kick off this year's Speed Chess Championships. So this was Title Tuesday, May 2017. I'm Grandmaster Eric Hansen. Thank you for joining me for 2.5 hours of Blitz Chess. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you next month for more. Bye, guys.